The wind blew hard across the snowy forest. It was dark and cold, and the trees were covered with white. Ryan stood near the window of his small wooden cabin, holding a cup of hot coffee. He lived alone, far from the city, and he liked the quiet. But tonight, something felt strange. The radio on the table had been making soft, crackling noises all day. Then it went silent, completely dead. He stepped outside, his boots crunching in the snow. The air was freezing, and the wind stung his face suddenly. He saw something move near the edge of the trees. It was small, like a person. But walking slow, unsteady, Ryan grabbed his flashlight and walked toward it when the light hit the figure. His eyes went wide. It was a girl, maybe 13 or 14. She wore a thin dress, no shoes, and her skin was pale blue. Her hair was silver, glowing softly in the dark. She looked up at him with glowing purple eyes. Then, without a word, she collapsed into the snow. Ryan didn't think. He ran to her and picked her up. Her body felt warm. Too warm for someone in the snow, he rushed back to his cabin and laid her on the couch. She was breathing but not speaking. He wrapped her in a blanket and placed a heater nearby. Her fingers twitched and her lips moved slightly. After a few minutes, her eyes opened again. Ryan knelt beside her, trying to speak. Softly, "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now," he said. She stared at him, confused. Then whispered something he didn't understand. The words were strange, not English, not anything he had heard. But then she tried again, slower. "Thank you," she said, her voice weak and soft. Ryan gave her water, which she drank quickly. He tried to ask her questions, like where she came from and what happened, but she didn't answer much, only saying a few simple words: cold, run, danger. Later that night, Ryan made some soup. She looked at it for a moment, then nodded and ate slowly. Her hands shook as she held the spoon, but her eyes watched everything, every corner. Every movement. She was scared, but also alert, like she was expecting something bad when she finished eating. Ryan gave her some clothes and a blanket. She didn't speak much, but when he turned to leave the room, she said something that made him stop. "They come soon." He turned. "Around who comes?" She shook her head and whispered again, "They come." Soon, Ryan didn't sleep that night. He sat in a chair near the fire. Watching the girl sleep on the couch, she didn't toss or turn. She lay still, hands folded. Like she was listening, even in sleep. The wind outside howled louder, and the snow kept falling. Then, around midnight, the radio made a strange sound. A loud burst of static, then silence, then again. Ryan turned the dial, but nothing happened. He looked over at the girl. Her eyes were open, glowing again. She sat up slowly and pointed to the radio signal. She said, "They look for me." The cabin lights flickered, just for a second. Then everything went dark. The heater stopped, the fire dimmed, and Ryan felt something strange in the air, like pressure, like the sky pressing down on the earth. The girl stood up, still. Holding the blanket around her, she walked to the window and looked outside. Ryan joined her, and what he saw chilled him to the bone, far in the distance, above the trees. Something moved, dark and fast, like a shadow in the sky. Then it was gone. He turned to the girl. "What was that?" She looked at him with sad eyes. "Hunters," she said. "They follow." Always. Ryan didn't understand everything. But he knew one thing: this girl was not normal, and whatever she had brought with her, it was now here, outside his cabin, in the snow, and it was looking for her. Ryan woke up to silence. The power was still out, and the fire had burned low. He sat up slowly, his back sore from sleeping in the chair. The girl was gone from the couch. His heart jumped, and he stood quickly. Then he saw her through the window, standing barefoot in the snow. Again, he rushed outside. "Hey, what are you doing?" She didn't move or answer, she was staring at the sky, where the clouds moved strangely, like something was pushing through them. Ryan took her arm gently. "You'll freeze out here?" She looked at him, her voice calm but serious. "They are close," she said. "They don't sleep." He led her back inside, this time locking the door. He was trying to stay calm, but his hands were shaking. "What are they?" he asked. She sat near the fire, wrapping the blanket around herself again. "Hunters," she whispered. "They find and take." Ryan didn't ask more just yet. Instead, he grabbed his flashlight and went outside to check the area. That's when he saw them footprints. Not his, not hers, but big and deep. Too long for a human foot. The snow around them was frozen harder, like something heavy had pressed down. They came from the forest, stopped near the cabin, then turned away. He followed them carefully, but they vanished near the trees. No trail. No prints leading away, just gone. Ryan slowly walked back to the cabin. His heart beat faster now when he stepped inside. The girl was holding his radio. It was glowing with a soft blue light, though it had no power. She looked up. "This is not just yours now?" Ryan blinked. "What do you mean?" She pointed to the glowing screen where symbols he didn't recognize were moving. "This speaks my words now too." He stared at it, unsure what to say. "Can it call for help?" he asked. She shook her head. "No help will come. Only them, that." Night's strange sounds came from the woods. Not animals, not wind, but low hums and sharp clicks. Ryan stayed awake. Holding a wrench tightly in his hand, the girl didn't sleep either, her eyes watching the door. Around midnight, something tapped on the window. Just once, then silence. Ryan moved slowly toward the window. "But saw nothing," he whispered. "Did you hear that?" The girl nodded. "They test to see if you are scared." "Why would that matter?" he asked, confused. She looked down, her voice low. "They smell fear. They feed on it, track it, follow it." Ryan swallowed hard, trying not to show how scared he was, but his hands were cold and damp, and he could feel his heartbeat in his ears. The next morning, Ryan checked the snow again. More footprints. This time circling the cabin. Whoever or whatever it was, it had come close but never entered. He started to board up the windows. Using old wood and metal sheets he had in storage, the girl helped him, quiet and focused, for someone her size. She was strong later. While eating a simple breakfast, Ryan asked, "Why did you come to me?" The girl looked at him and said, "You are not loud in the mind. You are quiet." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Loud in the mind." She tapped her head gently. "Most humans scream inside. Fear, anger, hate. Too loud, easy to find." He paused. "And I'm not." She smiled. "Just a little. You feel cold, but not afraid." "You are clear." There was silence between them for a few moments. Then she added, "That is why I knocked on your world." Ryan felt something deep in his chest. Not fear, but something like purpose. He didn't know what she truly was, or what the hunters really wanted, but he knew now this wasn't just about helping a girl in the snow. This was something bigger, and somehow he was in the middle of it. That evening, Ryan walked to the edge of the woods with his binoculars. He scanned the trees, the snow, the sky. Far off, he saw a light, a faint red glow moving between trees. It was not a star, not a drone. Something was watching, waiting, back inside the cabin. The girl had drawn something in the dust on the floor. A shape, like a star with too many arms, with a circle in the center. "This is their eye," she said. "When open, all hiding ends." Ryan didn't understand the meaning, but he memorized the shape. "Can it be closed?" he asked. She nodded, but only by someone not afraid to be seen. The fire cracked softly, the snow kept falling outside, and the two of them sat quietly, waiting for whatever came next. Ryan couldn't stop thinking about the strange shape the girl had drawn. The star with too many arms, the eye in the center, it was still there on the dusty wooden floor, and every time he looked at it, he felt uneasy. It wasn't just a drawing, it felt alive somehow. The girl hadn't spoken much since last night. She sat near the window during the day, watching the trees. She didn't eat much, but she didn't seem hungry either. Her eyes stayed sharp, alert, always listening. She only said one thing in the morning. They move now. Ryan wasn't sure what that meant. He had checked the radio again, but it was still dead until it wasn't. Just after noon, the radio lit up, glowing blue again, but there was no voice, no music, just a strange pulsing sound like a slow heartbeat. Ryan looked at the girl. Is this them? She walked over, her eyes glowing faintly, and nodded. They sent signal. To wake the watchers, Ryan leaned close to the speaker. Listening, the pulse was slow, but then it changed. The beats got faster. And then a sound like static turned into a strange voice. It wasn't English, but it felt like a whisper, deep. In his head, he pulled back, shaking his head. I don't understand. But I felt it. The girl nodded again. Not words. Feelings. What feeling was that? Ryan asked. She looked down, her voice soft. Hunger. Ryan felt a chill crawl up his back. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, but the sky was still gray. He grabbed his jacket and stepped out with the girl behind him. They walked slowly around the cabin, checking everything. That's when they saw it, on the trees high up. Strange marks had appeared overnight, symbols carved deep into the bark, glowing faint red. The girl touched one and pulled her hand back fast. They are close. Very close now. Suddenly, a sound burst through the trees, a low mechanical hum. Ryan turned and saw a dark shape moving between the branches. Not walking, but floating just above the ground. It was long, with thin arms and sharp edges. Its head was a flat disc, spinning slowly. Scanning the forest, Ryan grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her behind a fallen log. They stayed low, not moving. The thing passed by slowly, then vanished into the trees without a sound. The girl whispered, "That is a seeker. What does it seek?" Ryan asked. She looked at him with serious eyes. Me? And now, maybe. You, back inside the cabin, Ryan paced the floor. He didn't know how long he could protect her or himself. She sat calmly and said, "We must send signal to." He turned. "What kind of signal?" "One they fear," she said. "One only your kind can give." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small object. It looked like a black stone, but when she touched it, it glowed green. "This listens," she said, "but it needs you, Ryan." Stepped closer, and the stone flickered. The girl placed it in his hand, and it grew warmer. He felt something inside it, like it was watching him. Then, the stone began to shine brightly, and the radio lit up again. This time, it didn't hum. It sang a low, steady tone that filled the cabin with light. The red symbols on the trees outside dimmed. Far away, something screamed a sharp, high sound that echoed through the woods. The girl stood beside him, breathing fast. "They heard us," she said, "and now they come faster." The signal faded, but Ryan still felt a thrum in his chest. He wasn't sure what the stone had done, but it had made the watchers angry. "They fear you now," the girl said. Ryan didn't feel powerful, but he did feel different, more awake, more connected that night. The cabin shook, just slightly. Ryan grabbed a tool and stood by the window. The girl didn't move, her eyes closed, her hands glowing softly. Outside, red lights moved between trees, 3, maybe 4 shapes, floating low. "They test the shield," the girl said. "What?" "Shield," Ryan asked. She pointed to the stone, now resting on the table, glowing faint green. "You woke it. It protects now." "For a little time." "How long is a little?" Ryan asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Tomorrow, we go. To the heart. Ryan looked at her, confused. What heart? The forest has a place. Where I fell. Where they cannot see. Ryan didn't know what he had gotten into. But he knew one thing, he couldn't let her go alone. Ryan didn't. Sleep, the cabin creaked with every wind gust. But tonight it felt different. The forest was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Even the usual sounds, cracking trees, distant owls, were gone. Only the steady hum of the glowing stone remained. It pulsed faint green in the center. Of the table, like a slow heartbeat, the girl sat by the fire. Not asleep, but not fully awake either. Her eyes were closed, hands resting on her lap. She breathed slowly, like she was listening to something only she could hear. Then she opened her eyes. They're near, she said. Ryan stood up fast, grabbing the wrench from beside the door. How near? He asked. She turned her head toward the window. Very. He peeked outside and froze. Red lights moved slowly between the trees, more than before. 5, maybe 6, all floating low. Scanning. They didn't step, they didn't speak, just drifted, cold and silent. Suddenly, a knock. Not at the front door, but the back. 3 slow taps. Then stillness. Ryan and the girl didn't move. The fire dimmed slightly. And the stone's pulse quickened. They test the door, she whispered. Ryan moved quietly, peeking through the cracks. There was nothing outside, just snow and shadows. But he felt it, something was watching, waiting. Then came the voice. It wasn't loud. It slid through the walls like smoke. Return the child, it said. Ryan turned pale. What did it say? The girl stood, her voice calm. They want me back. Another knock. Sharper this time. Return her, the voice repeated. Colder now. Ryan gritted his teeth. What happens if I don't? The girl looked at him. They burn everything. The stone on the table flared brightly, and the radio came alive again. The same pulse, but now faster, stronger. The red lights outside began to gather, forming a circle around the cabin. They surround us, she said. We must go now. Ryan grabbed a backpack and filled it with food, water, and the glowing stone. The girl tied her blanket like a cloak and waited at the door. Where are we going? He asked. She pointed toward the thickest part of the forest. The heart, she said again. They can't enter there. Ryan opened the back door slowly. The snow had stopped falling, but fog had taken its place. Thick, cold fog that swallowed. Light and sound. They stepped outside, quiet and quick, staying low. They moved between trees, leaving no trail. Ryan had hunted before, but never like this, never while being hunted. The red lights followed, floating silently behind them. But every time the girl touched the stone, the lights slowed, confused. After an hour, they reached a small, frozen stream. The girl stopped and pointed at the water. Here, we cross. No watchers can pass running water. Ryan didn't ask why. He just helped her across carefully. The ice cracked, but didn't break, and they reached the other side safely. The forest was different here. The trees were taller, older, and the air felt heavy, like the place itself was watching. The girl knelt and placed her hand on the ground, then whispered something Ryan didn't understand. The ground responded. A soft hum rose from below, and the earth beneath a fallen tree began to open. A tunnel appeared, dark, narrow, but warm inside. This way, she said, and stepped in. Ryan followed, crouching low, unsure where this led. Inside, the walls glowed faint blue. Strange roots covered the ceiling like wires, pulsing slowly. The tunnel twisted and turned, till they reached a chamber made of smooth black stone. The girl sat in the center and placed the green stone on a small pedestal. It's safe here, she said, breathing hard. Ryan sat beside her, finally feeling warmth again. He looked around. What is this place? She smiled slightly. A seed. Of what my people lost. Outside, the red lights hovered at the edge of the woods. Unable to cross, they circled for hours, then slowly faded into the trees. The radio in Ryan's pack stopped pulsing. Silence returned. Ryan leaned back against the wall, exhausted. The girl looked at him with tired but thankful eyes. "You protect me," she said, "even when it is not safe." He nodded. "You needed help. And I don't leave people behind." She reached out and touched his hand. "You are not like the others." And now they know. Ryan looked at her, confused. Who knows? She didn't answer, only said, "They are not the only ones watching." Ryan didn't know how long they had stayed inside the glowing chamber. Time moved differently here. There was no sunlight, no sound from outside, only the slow pulse of the strange blue walls. The girl sat beside the stone pedestal, eyes closed. Hands resting gently on her knees, she seemed calmer now, but her face still carried the weight of fear. Not for herself, but for something much larger. Ryan walked in slow circles around the chamber. Every inch of the place felt alive. The walls were smooth but pulsing gently like a heartbeat. He touched one with his hand, and a soft warmth passed through his skin. He pulled back quickly. This place. It knows me. The girl opened her eyes. It listens. It watches. She stood and walked toward a corner of the room where a round black door had formed. Hadn't been there before. She placed her hand on it, and it opened without a sound. "Come," she said. "It's time." Ryan followed her into a second chamber, smaller and darker. In the center was a round table with strange carvings and 5 glowing stones. Each stone floated a few inches above the surface. The girl stepped back. "This is the test." Ryan frowned. "Test? What kind of test?" She looked at him carefully. "To know if you are truly what they fear." "I'm not special," Ryan said, shaking his head. "I'm just a guy who helped someone in the snow." She walked over and took his hand. Her touch was warm, calming. "You didn't run," she said. "That means more than you know." The floating stones began to spin slowly. A low hum filled the chamber, and the walls began to glow with strange symbols. Ryan felt pressure in his chest, not pain, just weight. Like the room was pushing thoughts into him. One of the stones shot forward and hovered near his face. A voice entered his mind, not in words, but in feelings: anger, war, death, fire. He flinched and stepped back, but the stone didn't leave. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "I don't want to fight," he whispered. "I just want to protect." The stone stopped spinning, then slowly moved back to the table. Another stone floated toward him, this one colder. He felt loneliness, loss. A long silence without anyone. Tears filled his eyes before he understood the feeling wasn't his. Was the stone's. He touched it gently. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. The stone warmed in his hand, then returned to the circle. All 5 stones lit up, brighter than before. The girl smiled, just a little. "You passed," she said. Ryan breathed hard, confused but somehow relieved. "What was that?" he asked. "The memory of what they took from us," she said. "You gave it back." A beam of white light shot down from the ceiling. It hit the center of the table, forming a 3-dimensional image in the air. A map of the stars, but with many dark areas marked in red. The girl pointed to one of the glowing blue dots. "This is where my people once lived," she said. "All gone now." All silenced. Ryan stared at the red zones. "The Watchers did this?" She nodded. "They erase worlds that resist." He clenched his fists. "How do we stop them?" The girl walked to the map and placed her hand near one of the blue lights. "They only fear one thing." "Your kind." Ryan looked. "Confused humans." She nodded again. "Not for weapons, not for power, but for heart. You resist even when you know you might lose." The chamber shifted again, and a passage opened in the wall beyond it. Ryan saw a platform holding what looked like a large metallic ring. It was old, covered in dust and vines, but still glowing faint blue. "This is the beacon," she said. "It must be activated by you." Ryan stepped forward slowly. Placing both hands on the ring, it responded instantly. Lighting up in bright waves of light, a sound filled the room. Deep and powerful, like a voice calling across space. The girl smiled. "You just called them?" "Called who?" Ryan asked. She looked up toward the ceiling, where stars began to move. "Others who still fight." "Others like you." Ryan stood beside her, the room glowing bright behind them. Outside the forest, the watchers paused. They turned their heads to the sky, where something new was coming. Something they hadn't expected. A signal not of fear but of challenge, and it was getting closer. The sky cracked open with a sound that made the trees tremble. Ryan stood just outside the hidden chamber, looking up at a blue light breaking through the clouds. It wasn't thunder, and it wasn't from Earth. The beacon had done something, called something, and now the watchers were afraid beside him. The girl's silver hair moved with the wind. She was breathing fast, but her eyes stayed calm. "They come now," she said. "Not the watchers." "The others?" Ryan stared at her. "You mean?" "Help." She nodded. "But we must survive until they arrive." From the edge of the woods, the red lights appeared again. This time, more than before. Not 5, not 10, but maybe 30 or more. Shapes floated through the fog, their red eyes glowing like fire. "They will strike hard now," she said. "We must move." Ryan grabbed the glowing stone and slung the backpack over his shoulder. The girl held a new object, something shaped like a curved blade, but made of light. "It will help for a moment," she whispered. "But it will cost me strength." They left the chamber, running through the snow-covered forest. Their breath steamed in the cold air as they moved fast between frozen trees. The watchers followed silently, but the ground began to shake with their presence. Each step made the ice crack. Each hum from their floating machines grew louder. As Ryan and the girl reached the frozen lake, she stopped suddenly. "This is where we fight," she said. Ryan looked out across the wide sheet of ice. Empty, flat, nowhere to hide. He shook his head. "This isn't a good place." She looked at him calmly. "It is the only place." The girl walked to the center of the lake and knelt. She placed the glowing blade into the ice, and the air shimmered. A circle of light appeared around her, thin but bright. Ryan joined her inside the circle, holding the stone tight. "What now?" he asked. She didn't answer, but her eyes burned with light. The watchers came from the trees, slow and careful. They formed a circle around the lake, floating just above the snow. Then they stopped. One moved forward, taller than the others, its body made of dark metal and smoke. It raised a long, sharp arm and pointed at the girl. It spoke, but not with words, only force. A shock wave hit the lake, cracking the ice near the edge. Ryan fell to his knees, but held the stone higher. The green light grew stronger, forming a thin shield around them. The girl stood and lifted the blade. It burst into white fire, lighting up the lake like daylight. The first watcher attacked, flying fast like a spear. She slashed the blade, and it broke in two, falling into the ice. But more came, moving in from every side. Ryan stepped forward, swinging a metal rod he had carried from the cabin. It wasn't much, but the stone in his other hand pulsed with every move he made. Each time he struck, the enemy pulled back, afraid. The girl moved like wind, fast and sharp. She cut through two more watchers, but her blade started to dim. Her legs shook, and she fell to one knee. Ryan ran to her, catching her before she hit the ice. "You're hurt," he said. She looked up, her voice weak. "I gave too much." "It's yours now." The blade of light vanished, and the stone in Ryan's hand changed color blue and gold now. It grew larger, shaping into a strange shield around his arm. He stood, facing the last wave of watchers as they circled in the air. Then the sky above them lit up again. This time, it was not red. A ship huge, silver, and glowing appeared through the clouds. It hovered silently. Then beams of light shot down across the forest. One by one, the watchers screamed and fled. Some vanished in smoke, others exploded in bursts of red sparks. Ryan turned to the girl, who was lying weakly in the snow. "It's over," he said. "They're leaving." She opened her eyes slowly, a faint smile on her face. "No," she whispered. "It has only just begun." A voice came from the sky, smooth and deep, human. "You have passed the trial?" Ryan looked up, confused. "Trial?" The voice continued. "The universe has waited for your kind. The line has been broken, and you are the bridge." The ship landed softly on the far side of the lake. A ramp lowered, and figures stepped out tall, graceful, with glowing armor and kind eyes. One of them approached Ryan and looked at the girl. "She chose well," he said. "You are ready." Ryan held her hand as the new beings surrounded them. The war was not over, but now he wasn't alone. The light from the ship washed over the frozen lake. Ryan held the girl close as warmth spread around them. Her breathing was slow but steady. The beings from the ship knelt beside her, their hands glowing softly as they placed them on her chest and forehead. A pulse of white light passed through her body. Her eyes opened again, bright as stars. Ryan breathed out in relief. "You're okay." The girl sat up slowly, looking at the beings surrounding them. They bowed their heads, slightly not to Ryan, but to her. He noticed it, confused. "What's going on?" he asked. One of the tall figures turned to him. "She is not just a messenger." Ryan looked at the girl, and she gave a small, quiet smile. "I didn't lie," she said. "I just didn't tell everything." She stood up on her own, stronger. Now the silver in her hair glowing like moonlight. "I was sent to Earth not to run," she said, "but to choose." Ryan stepped back a little. "Choose what?" She looked him in the eyes. "A human who could awaken what we lost." The tall beings nodded. "For centuries, we watched your world," one of them said. "We believed you were not ready." But then the watchers returned, and she saw something different in you. Ryan tried to speak, but he didn't know what to say. He looked down at the shield still glowing on his arm. The artifact had fused with him. He hadn't just used it. He had become part of it. The girl walked toward the ship, then turned back to face him. "You were never meant to be just a protector," she said. "You are a link. The bridge between our world and yours." Suddenly, the air shimmered again, and a new figure appeared. It wasn't like the others. Its body was dark, wrapped in sharp, black armor, with red lights blinking slowly from its chest. The girl's face became serious again. "That's a shadow agent," she said. "One of the watchers that survived." The tall beings pulled their weapons, but the figure raised a hand. "No weapons will work here," it said in a voice that shook the air. "Only truth." Ryan stepped forward, the shield on his arm glowing gold and blue. "What do you want?" he asked. The figure looked directly at him to offer a deal. There was silence. Then the watcher spoke again. "Return the girl, and Earth will be left in peace." Ryan didn't move, didn't blink. "You've already attacked my world," he said. "We're not trading anyone." The watcher's lights dimmed for a second, like it was unsure. Then it said, "You are one voice, but others on your world will choose survival over sacrifice." Ryan lifted his shield. "Then they'll have to fight me first." The girl stepped beside him, her voice calm but strong. "You had your chance," she said to the watcher. "Now it's our turn." The watcher didn't speak again. It vanished, fading into smoke that rose into the night sky, but its words hung in the air like ice. The girl turned to Ryan. "They will come back." "I know," he said. "Let them." The tall beings led Ryan and the girl into the ship. Inside, it was quiet and warm, filled with soft lights and voices speaking in many tongues. Other humans were already their soldiers. Scientists, even children, all had seen things. All had survived the first strikes. "They are building something," the girl said. "A defense not of walls, but of people. People like you." Ryan looked around the ship and felt something stir inside him. Not fear this time, but purpose. "I didn't choose this," he said quietly. The girl smiled. "But you answered when no one else did." One of the tall beings approached him and handed him a new uniform symbol. Gray, with a symbol on the chest. It matched the strange stone that once rested on his table. He took it, held it in his hands for a moment, then nodded. "I'm ready," he said. As the ship lifted into the sky, the earth below grew smaller. But the stars ahead grew brighter. The girl stood at the window beside him, hands behind her back, her eyes full of light. "You're not just human anymore," she said softly. "You're a signal." He looked at her. "What kind of signal?" "One that says, 'We are not alone anymore,'" she whispered, "and we won't be hunted again." The stars stretched ahead, filled with danger, filled with hope, and this time Earth had sent more than a message. It had sent someone who was willing to stand.